my friends. I am John Gilbert, and I thank you for joining me for part 2 of my life. We left off with my becoming an extra at the Innsville studios in Santa Monica. So I spent a week of foodless days and sleepless nights awaiting a reply to my father's letter to Innsville. I was consumed with my ambition and was completely movie-struck. I absorbed all the magazines containing news of pictures. I went to as many shows as I could cram into a day. I was feverish and delirious with hopes and fears. Then came the answer, brief but exploding like dynamite. Mr. Ince says he can give the boy $15 a week if he cares to come down. I'm afraid I became a bit hysterical. That night I dreamed dreams and planned plans, and being very human, I forgot all about God and didn't thank him at all. 2 days later, I left for Los Angeles. Ariel had begun to play for me, and I, sure of his capture, chased madly after him. But I did not catch him. I never will. San Francisco, and several hours to wait for a southbound train. Time in the morning for a trip through the exposition grounds, the great World's Fair of 1915. Magnificent buildings designed and erected by the greatest architects and builders in America. But for me, unimportant. The Tower of Jewels, radiant in the sunlight, reaching far into the heavens, insignificant. The exhibit of machines, massive, cool, and naked, sullen in their inactivity, stupid and tiresome. But my heart beat quickly as a low wind from the Golden Gate whispered in my ears, "You are going to be a movie actor." That was important. That was amazing. That destroyed these obelisks rising precipitate, these clusters of domes and towers, these displays of man's mechanical genius. My expression was to be a complete projection of my inner self on an entirely mental plane, with nothing visible but a shadow of me thrown on a screen. To hell with this man's exposition. I was 17. Hi-ho, what a world to live in. The afternoon I saw a picture. A new idol sprang up before me. William S. Hart. I thought he was great. So was the picture. It was called On the Night Stage. And then time turned backward. Years before, my mother had played in a stock company in Cincinnati. Her leading man's name was Herschel Mayle. The last time I had seen him was when my father had taken me into a saloon near the theater to say goodbye as the company was closing. A few words of farewell were exchanged, and we departed, leaving Herschel leaning against the bar, one foot on the rail, his glass to his lips. On the Night Stage had barely started when a title was flashed on the screen, introducing Black Jack Malone, the bad man of the movie. As the scene faded into view, there stood Herschel, leaning against the bar, one foot on the rail, with a glass raised to his lips. The effect upon me was startling. Herschel either held his liquor well, or it had been a long time between drinks. When the train arrived in Los Angeles, I rushed to a telephone. Santa Monica, I knew, was some distance from the city, but I wished to announce my arrival. The studio would probably send a car for me. Do not forget that during the few days on the train, I had gone through my entire movie apprenticeship, had graduated from bits and small parts, had now arrived, important and a bit blasé, ready to start my first starring vehicle. Someone at Innsville answered the telephone. I proclaimed my presence. The voice inquired, "What of it?" I asked, "How shall I get out there?" The voice came back, "Walk." I answered, "Don't get fresh." Innsville retorted, "Go to hell," and rang up. A bit disturbed, but by no means humbled, I once more rang the studio, and when the same disquieting voice came over the wire, I repeated my previous announcement and query, whereupon the gentleman at the other end asked who the hell I was, and what the hell I wanted, and what the hell I thought that place was, and once more told me to go to hell, and again rang up. The telephone calls had cost 60 cents. I decided to try an appearance in the flesh. Late in the afternoon, I found Inseville. God knows how. Trains and streetcars and buses carried me far up the beach beyond Santa Monica. There lay the studio of my dreams, under 2 feet of dust. Inseville resembled nothing more than a sleepy, dirty western town. Scattered buildings of plain boards and rut-worn roads leading up into the hills. Barring the entrance was a high swinging gate with a no-admittance sign barely legible through a mixture of caked mud and manure, and guarded by a crummy, grizzled old desert rat. Few people were visible. I approached the gateman and told him who I was, and that I had been engaged by Mr. Ince. He merely looked at me, stared at me for a long time, and said nothing, and did nothing. I became embarrassed. I repeated my information. The gateman merely stared. My discomfiture increased. I appeared to be talking to a deaf mute. An impulse seized me to open the gate and pass through. The sight of a six-shooter hanging on the wall of the gatehouse smothered the impulse at birth. I looked about me. A rugged, endless coastline stretched east and west. Lazy waves lapped intermittently upon the sandy beach. A tired seagull floated near, casting his eyes inquisitively in my direction. In a tremulous voice, I asked the gateman if he would telephone the office and notify someone that I was waiting. His reply was sharp and laconic. No phone here. I felt very small and unimportant. I asked if I might sit down. The gateman waited a long time before replying, then asked, "Where?" I didn't know, so I remained standing. The gateman spat tobacco juice and returned to the magazine he was reading. After several minutes of this tortuous silence, he cocked one eye at me and inquired, "Actor?" Timidly, I replied, "Yes, sir." Another long silence, as the gateman's eyes bored into my soul. Then he mused, Lot of them here." The Ford bus from Santa Monica chugged up and came to a spasmodic halt to await homegoing passengers from Huntsville. The driver said to the gateman, "Low, Tom." The gateman said to the driver, "Low, Joe." Silence. I climbed into the bus and slipped into a dust-covered seat. I shut my eyes and dreamed a little bit. I was not aware that nothing ever turns out as we have planned. Inside of me was a dull ache, and Ariel was silent. I heard the sound of hinges squeaking. The gate was being opened. A man walked toward the bus. The man was Herschel Mayle. I leaped upon him. He did not recognize me. I told him who I was. Then he remembered. I explained my predicament, and he was entirely sympathetic. The gateman said nothing as Herschel led me through and into the forbidden territory. I was taken to Walter Edwards' office. I was so voluble and excited that I tried to mouth 3 words at a time. Then I was brought before Mr. Ince and his business manager, E.H. Allen. They were both cordial and made me welcome. I dined that night with Walter Edwards, and leaving him, rented a room at a hotel nearby. I tried to sleep, but could not. I was neither happy nor unhappy. I was not calm, neither was I excited. I was a movie actor and, well, what the hell of it. Thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you will join me for part 3 of my life, where I find out the truth of being a movie actor.